Life has this funny way of lulling you into a routine. Mine wasn't glamorous, but it was solid. Every morning, before the first light of dawn, I'd find my way to the kitchen, where I'd brew my coffee while the house remained silent. The fridge hummed in the background, its mechanical hum strangely comforting, as if it were a personal mantra to start the day. That quiet time was mine, the calm before the storm of family life took over. And by storm, I mean my wife, Emma, and our two teenage daughters, Chloe and Sophie. Emma and I met back in college. She was the type of woman who could walk into a room and own it without even trying. I was drawn to her fire, her drive. The way she made me feel like I was invincible, simply by flashing me that knowing smile. We got married young, and before we knew it, Chloe and Sophie were born. They quickly became the light of our lives, though let's face it, teenage girls can test every bit of your patience. Still, we found our rhythm. Emma was the logistical mastermind, the general orchestrating our daily lives, while I played the role of the reliable dad, fixing leaky faucets, grilling steaks on Sundays, and making sure the girls knew they could always count on me. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. Father's Day was one of those rare occasions when the spotlight shifted to me. Emma and the girls would cook a homemade breakfast, maybe even throw together a card. It was sweet, even if they didn't quite get my sarcastic humor, and ended up writing things like, "Best dad ever." Honestly, all I wanted was to feel appreciated. But last year's Father's Day would mark the beginning of a downward spiral I never saw coming. That morning started like any other. I woke up early, brewed my coffee, enjoyed the quiet of the house. By the time Emma and the girls stumbled into the kitchen, I was already feeling the vibe of a relaxing day ahead. Emma greeted me with a quick kiss and promised a special breakfast. Nice, right? Except, she burnt the bacon and overcooked the eggs. Still, I told myself it was the thought that counted. We spent the afternoon at some quirky Doctor Who-themed cafe that Emma had found online. Chloe and Sophie were thrilled. Apparently, nerdy chic was in style, and I wasn't complaining. The food was decent, and the atmosphere was light, but something about Emma felt off. She was quieter than usual, distracted, like her mind was miles away. Later that week, Emma dropped a bombshell. She was going out with some coworkers on Friday night. Now, it wasn't the request itself that raised my eyebrows, but the way she said it, casual, like she'd rehearsed it 100 times. Emma wasn't exactly a social butterfly. We usually spent Friday nights together. My gut told me something was wrong, but I brushed it off. Maybe I was just being paranoid. Then Friday came, and Emma stepped out of the bedroom looking like she was auditioning for a rom-com. Short skirt, stockings, heels, the works. "Wow," I said, half joking. "Who's the lucky coworker?" She gave me a tight smile, brushed past me, and said, "Don't wait up." The door clicked shut behind her. That was the first time I felt it, the creeping doubt. Emma didn't come home until just before midnight. I heard the door creak open, followed by the familiar click of her heels on the hardwood. I glanced at her as she passed through the living room. Her hair, which had been styled when she left, was now in a simple ponytail. She didn't even say goodnight, just headed straight for the shower. Now, I'm not the paranoid type, but something about that night didn't sit right. Why the late-night shower? Why couldn't she look me in the eye when she walked past? I shrugged it off, convincing myself I was overthinking it. After all, we'd been married for almost 2 decades. If I couldn't trust her, then what was the point? The next morning, Emma was already in the kitchen, acting like everything was perfectly normal. I grabbed my coffee, kissed her on the cheek, and watched her reaction. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "How was your night?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Oh, fine," she replied too quickly. "We just went to a new wine bar." It was nice. A wine bar? Emma hated wine. I wanted to press her further, but just then Chloe and Sophie bounded into the kitchen, ending the conversation. I told myself to let it go. Maybe she was just trying something new. People change, right? But then the little things started adding up. Emma was dressing up more often for work, wearing makeup she usually skipped, staying late at the office multiple nights in a row. When I'd ask about her day, her answers were vague. "Busy," she'd say, or "You know how it is." Except I didn't know how it was. I'd never seen her so distant. Then came Father's Day, my birthday to be exact. I'd been looking forward to it all week. Emma had promised a special celebration, and the girls seemed excited too. I woke up early as usual and went about my morning routine, expecting them to join me soon. But by noon, the house was eerily quiet. Finally, I heard Chloe's voice. "Bye, Dad," she yelled from the front door. I ran to the window just in time to see Emma and the girls pulling out of the driveway, beach gear packed in the back. My jaw nearly hit the floor. They'd forgotten my birthday. They'd forgotten Father's Day. I tried to tell myself there had to be an explanation, but the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I spent the day alone, scrolling through social media, eating a sad McDonald's lunch in the park. Later, I posted a photo of my sad celebration on Facebook. Within minutes, my mother-in-law commented, "Looks like Emma and the girls are having a great time at the beach." That stung. So they remembered to post pictures, but couldn't bother to say a word to me? When they got home that evening, Chloe and Sophie ran up to me, apologizing profusely. "We forgot it was your birthday," Chloe said, looking genuinely upset. "It's fine," I lied, hugging them both. "Don't worry about it." Emma lingered by the door, watching us with tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered, but the words felt hollow. I nodded and walked past her, heading to the deck with a beer in hand. I needed air away from her. Later that night, I confronted her. Not with accusations but with a simple question. "Emma, is there something going on?" She froze, her back to me as she washed a plate in the sink. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice tight. "You've been distant," I said, trying to stay calm. "Working late, going out more often. You forgot my birthday. That's not like you." She turned to face me, her eyes wide with fake indignation. "You think I'm having an affair?" she snapped. "Seriously, Bill?" I hadn't even said the word affair, but her defensive tone confirmed everything I needed to know. "I didn't say that," I replied, trying to remain calm. "But you're acting different. And I want to know why." She sighed dramatically, shook her head. "You're imagining things." But I wasn't. I could feel it in my gut. The woman I had loved for nearly 20 years was hiding something. The next few days were a blur of suspicion and denial. I began paying close attention to her phone, her emails, even the laundry. Nothing seemed out of place, but the nagging feeling wouldn't go away. I knew I had to find out the truth, one way or another. And then came the turning point. That Friday, Emma claimed she had another work event, something about a late client dinner. I nodded and played along, but this time I was ready. Before she left, I casually asked, "Which restaurant are you going to?" "Oh, Casabella," she replied, naming an upscale Italian place downtown. "Don't wait up. It might run late." I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but my gut told me to dig deeper. I grabbed my phone, checked the restaurant's website, and saw they had an online reservation system. A quick search for that evening showed no reservations under Emma's name, or her company's. Interesting. I didn't want to make any rash moves, but I couldn't ignore the feeling that something was off. I drove to Casabella and parked discreetly across the street. For over an hour, I watched people come and go, but Emma was nowhere to be seen. Frustrated, I headed home. She walked in around midnight, avoiding eye contact. Her hair was messy, her makeup smudged, and there was a faint smell of perfume, mixed with something else I couldn't quite place. "How was dinner?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Fine," she replied, her voice clipped. "I'm exhausted. I'm going to bed." Something was definitely going on, and I was going to find out what. I didn't confront her immediately, but my suspicions had shifted from vague doubts to a need for concrete proof. The next morning, as Emma left early to run errands, I knew this was my chance. I sprang into detective mode. First, I tried her phone. No luck. She'd added a passcode just days before. Undeterred, I moved on to her laptop, praying for a break. That's when I found it. Hidden in the trash folder. A string of deleted emails between Emma and someone named Jason. They were careful not to say anything explicit, but the tone was unmistakable, flirty, intimate, full of inside jokes I didn't recognize. My stomach twisted as I read phrases like, "Last night was amazing. I want more dates like this. And I hope to see you again soon." I screenshot the emails and forwarded them to myself, hands trembling as I hit send. The weight of those words, seeing the evidence laid out in black and white, shattered the last illusion I had. I'd suspected for weeks, but now I knew. This wasn't just a feeling. It was real. When Emma came home that afternoon, I kept my cool. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I took the girls out for ice cream, trying to focus on them, to bury the storm brewing inside me. But that night, after they'd settled in their rooms, I cornered Emma in the kitchen. "We need to talk," I said, keeping my voice even. She looked up from her tea, startled. "What about?" she asked, her eyes cautious. "I know about Jason." The words hung in the air. Emma's face drained of color. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice rising in disbelief. "Don't play dumb, Emma," I shot back, pulling up the screenshots on my phone. "I saw the emails." I held out the phone to her. Her eyes darted across the screen, and I could see her entire body deflate. She let out a shaky breath. "Bill, I'm sorry," she whispered, but her apology felt hollow, like a desperate plea. "Sorry," I barked, incredulous. "That's it. How long has this been going on?" She hesitated, and that hesitation was all I needed to know. "It doesn't matter," I snapped. "You've been lying to me, sneaking around behind my back. Do you have any idea what you've done to this family?" Tears welled up in her eyes, but I wasn't about to let them soften me. "Do Chloe and Sophie know?" I asked coldly. "No, please don't tell them," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "I'll do anything to fix this." "Fix this?" I repeated with a bitter laugh. "There's no fixing this, Emma. We're done." The days that followed were a blur of lawyers, heated arguments, and painful goodbyes. I told the girls that Emma and I were separating, but spared them the details. They were devastated, but I made sure they knew I'd always be there for them. Emma tried everything she could to make amends, long, tearful texts, emails begging me to reconsider, swearing that the affair was a mistake, a moment of weakness. But I couldn't unsee the truth. Trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to rebuild. I moved out to a small apartment across town. It wasn't much, but it was mine. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Emma and I agreed on joint custody, and I made sure to spend as much time as possible with the girls. I threw myself into work during the week, but on weekends I was all theirs. My apartment, though small, became a little haven for us. Pizza nights, movie marathons, and long late-night talks. They leaned on me more than ever, and honestly, I needed them just as much. As for Emma, she spiraled. At first, she was apologetic, sending long messages about how she'd made a terrible mistake. But when I didn't respond, her tone shifted, and she started blaming me, claiming that I had been distant, emotionally unavailable. Classic deflection. Her fling with Jason didn't last long either. A few weeks after the split, Sophie let it slip that her mom had been crying a lot. I wasn't surprised. Cheating might feel exciting in the moment, but the aftermath is always a mess. Jason had bailed as soon as things got complicated, leaving Emma to deal with the wreckage. The hardest part of all this was navigating the girls' emotions. Chloe was furious, at Emma, at me, at the world. "How could you just leave?" she demanded one night. I explained that Emma's choices had left me with no other option. But the words felt hollow. She was still too young to fully understand. Sophie, on the other hand, went quiet. She stopped talking to Emma altogether, spending more time with me. I never pressured her, but it broke my heart to see how the affair had torn their bond apart. Emma, desperate to repair her relationship with the girls, started spinning stories. She downplayed the affair, claiming it had been a misunderstanding. Chloe wasn't buying it, but Sophie wavered, torn between her loyalty to her mom and the truth she couldn't ignore. The divorce was finalized quickly, thanks to the evidence I'd gathered. I received a fair split of our assets, and I avoided alimony. Emma's attempts to paint me as the villain fell flat when the judge saw the emails. But winning in court didn't feel like a victory. The girls were still caught in the middle. Every interaction with Emma felt like walking a tightrope. She tried to manipulate the girls, using them to guilt me into reconciliation. But I stood firm. "I'll always be your co-parent," I told her. But that's where it ends. Eventually, Chloe saw through Emma's manipulation. One evening, Chloe confronted her. From what Sophie later told me, it wasn't pretty. "You broke Dad's heart, and now you're trying to act like the victim," Chloe had shouted. I didn't celebrate their falling out, but I hoped it would force Emma to take responsibility for her actions. A year passed. Life finally began to feel stable again. The girls and I rebuilt our bond stronger than ever. Emma and I communicated only when necessary, mostly about school events or scheduling. She seemed to have accepted that our marriage was over, though the bitterness lingered. As for me, I wasn't in any rush to start over. I dated casually, but my focus was on being the best father I could be. If love came knocking again, great. If not, I was content knowing I'd survived the worst and come out stronger. The fallout with Emma left scars, but it also taught me the value of self-respect and the importance of showing my daughters what it means to stand up for yourself. Life might not have turned out the way I planned, but it was finally mine to live. And that, I realized, was enough. This story wouldn't be complete if I didn't tell you about one unexpected moment. It was my birthday again, 1 year after everything had fallen apart. A year of healing, rebuilding, and learning how to be a single dad. Chloe and Sophie had texted me that morning, asking if they could stop by after school to celebrate. I'd planned a low-key evening, a good steak, some whiskey, and a quiet night. But I wasn't about to say no to my girls. What I didn't expect was Emma showing up too. Around 6 p.m. the doorbell rang. When I opened it, there they were, Chloe and Sophie, holding a small cake. And behind them, Emma. She stood in the doorway with a bright smile and a bottle of wine. My heart sank, and my stomach twisted. This wasn't the quiet evening I'd envisioned. "Happy birthday, Dad." Chloe and Sophie cheered, rushing in to hug me. Emma lingered at the door, holding the wine like a peace offering. "Emma," I said, forcing a smile. "This is unexpected. I thought I'd drop by to celebrate with you and the girls," she said, stepping inside uninvited. "I even brought your favorite wine." "Ah yes. Nothing says birthday cheer like Merlot and unresolved trauma." I closed the door behind her, managing a weak joke to mask my discomfort. The girls set the cake on the table, chattering about their day, while Emma stood there, inspecting the apartment with a mix of admiration and condescension. "You've really made this place your own," she said. "Thanks," I muttered, feeling a chill in my chest. It was hard to know whether I was more exhausted by her presence or by the weight of everything we'd been through. Life had taught me many lessons, and now, it was time to embrace the reality that I had finally found peace, on my own terms. As Emma stood in the doorway, I forced a smile, though inside my stomach twisted. "Happy birthday, Dad." Chloe and Sophie cheered as they rushed in with a small cake. Behind them, Emma lingered, holding a bottle of wine like it was some peace offering. I managed a tight smile. "Emma," I said, trying to keep the tension from my voice, "this is unexpected. I thought I'd come by to celebrate with you and the girls," she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "I even brought your favorite wine." "Ah yes, nothing says happy birthday like Merlot and unresolved betrayal." I suppressed a bitter laugh and shut the door behind her. The girls, excited about the cake, didn't seem to notice the undercurrent of discomfort, but I couldn't shake the weight of her presence. I stared at Emma for a moment. "Thanks," I muttered, trying not to let my sarcasm show. "It's nice." She wandered around my apartment, as if inspecting it, and I could almost hear her thoughts. "You've really made this place your own," she said, her voice dripping with something that could have been admiration, if not for the condescension. I couldn't help it anymore. It's amazing what a man can do when he's not dodging lies and betrayal. Emma flinched but quickly recovered. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice softer now, almost pleading. "Please." Every part of me screamed to say no, to slam the door in her face, and let her stew in her own guilt. But the girls were there, and I didn't want to make a scene. Begrudgingly, I followed her into the kitchen. She leaned against the counter, gripping the bottle of wine like it was her lifeline. "Bill," she began, her voice cracking, "I know things ended badly between us, but I've been thinking, maybe we can be friends." I raised an eyebrow. "Friends?" I echoed, incredulous. "You mean the kind who stab each other in the back? Or just the kind who accidentally sleep with other people?" Her face hardened. "I've apologized for that," she replied, as if the words were supposed to erase everything. "I made a mistake." "A mistake?" I shot back, my voice rising with anger. "Emma, a mistake is forgetting to pick up milk, not sneaking around behind my back and betraying everything we had. She sighed, clearly frustrated. I wasn't your property, Bill, she said, her voice sharp now. I wasn't some possession you owned. I had the right to make a mistake. I stared at her dumbfounded. The right? I repeated. Oh, of course, how silly of me. Till death do us part. Unless you feel like a little extracurricular activity. That must have been in the fine print of our vows. Her cheeks flushed, but she pressed on. You don't understand, she said, her tone defensive. I felt trapped. People in modern relationships, some of them explore open marriages to reconnect. I blinked. Open marriage? I almost laughed. Is that what you're calling cheating these days? Rebranding it like it's some new, trendy diet. She snapped at me, her frustration now bubbling to the surface. It works for some couples. They use it to strengthen their bond. I couldn't help it. I burst into laughter, the absurdity of it all sinking in. Oh sure, nothing strengthens a bond like letting your spouse sleep with someone else. Maybe I should have sent you a Groupon for it. You're impossible, she huffed, hands on her hips. Why do you have to turn everything into a joke? Because Emma, if I don't laugh I might cry. And frankly, you're not worth the tears. She folded her arms, glaring at me. You're so self-righteous, she spat. You think you're perfect. You worked long hours. You were distant. I cut her off immediately. Stop right there, I said, holding up a hand. Don't you dare try to blame this on me. I worked those long hours to support our family. Distant? I wasn't distant. I was busy holding everything together while you were. What's the word? Reconnecting. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. But no words came out. Look, I continued, my tone dripping with sarcasm. If this is your pitch for why I should forgive you, it's not working. But hey, maybe you've got a PowerPoint presentation hidden somewhere. Slide 1. How betrayal builds trust. She stood there, blinking, clearly at a loss for words. Bill, I'm trying, she said, her voice breaking. I'm trying to make things right. I scoffed. I'm trying to celebrate my birthday without reliving the worst year of my life. So maybe you should take your open marriage theories and your wine and... Dad, Sophie's voice cut in from the other room, interrupting me. We're lighting the candles. I exhaled slowly, forcing a smile. Coming, I called back. Turning to Emma, I added, this conversation is over. If you want to stay and watch the girls blow out the candles, fine. But keep your pseudo-psychology and excuses to yourself. The rest of the evening was painfully awkward. The girls didn't seem to notice the tension. But Emma kept throwing me these pitiful, almost pleading looks, like she were the victim. I played the part of the happy dad, laughing and joking with Chloe and Sophie. But inside I was boiling. When Emma finally left, she lingered by the door. Happy birthday, Bill, she said softly. I hope someday you'll understand. I smirked, feeling a strange sense of satisfaction. Oh, I understand perfectly, I replied, my voice cool. You don't regret what you did. You regret getting caught. Her eyes widened. But before she could say anything, I shut the door and locked it behind me, leaning against it with a deep sigh of relief. I poured myself another glass of that damn Merlot, and couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of it all. Open marriage, I muttered to myself, shaking my head. Hell, maybe I should start selling it as a self-help seminar. How to ruin your life in 3 easy steps. Her words played in my head like a broken record. I wasn't your property, she'd said. I had the right to make a mistake. I laughed bitterly at the absurdity. A mistake? Leaving laundry in the washer too long? Forgetting someone's birthday? But sneaking around behind your spouse's back, betraying their trust, lying repeatedly? That's not a mistake. That's a decision. A premeditated, conscious choice. Emma had tried to spin her actions as some sort of enlightened attempt at self-discovery. But the more I thought about it, the more ridiculous it seemed. You'd think I was the crazy one for not buying into her new age buzzwords like open marriage. The irony was almost comical. Marriage wasn't about ownership. It was about mutual respect and trust. When one person shatters that trust, they can't hide behind excuses and rebranding. Emma didn't want to face the reality of her actions. The truth was, her life had fallen apart not because she'd made a mistake, but because she refused to take responsibility for it. After the divorce, Jason had abandoned her as soon as things got complicated. Now, a year later, Emma was circling back to me, hoping I'd forget the past and serve as her safety net once again. But I wasn't falling for it. I couldn't help but think about the advice I'd want to share with anyone in my position. First, trust your gut. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Second, cheating isn't a mistake, it's a choice. Don't let anyone gaslight you into thinking otherwise. Third, walking away doesn't make you the villain. Protect your peace, your self-respect, and your future. Fourth, don't let them rewrite the rules. If someone suddenly starts throwing around terms like open marriage, it's time to make a serious exit strategy. Fifth, you're not alone. Reach out to friends, family, or even a lawyer if you need support. And sixth, know when to laugh. Humor can help you heal. Just don't let it distract you from the gravity of the situation. As I drained the last of my wine, I felt a strange sense of closure. Emma's visit had reminded me of everything I'd been through and how far I'd come. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. I was just done. And that, I realized, was the greatest gift I could have given myself on my birthday. The freedom to move on, unburdened by her excuses and lies. The past was her cage, not mine.